I needed the emotion of Lion King, and I needed, because the animated film is a classic, and I knew I didn't have at my disposal everything they had on the animated film. I couldn't have anthropomorphic faces. I learned pretty quickly when we were figuring out how to do the animals in Jungle Book that there's a very fine line between photoreal animation and the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Did you limit yourself as far as the movement in the animals' faces to what they could do?
Yeah, we rigged them like the real animals, and of course we had to have them talking. So, we used all the tricks. And by the way, Walt Disney was wrestling with this back when they were planning Bambi. There's recordings of him and of going from the stylistic version of it that they used in Snow White to Bambi, of how they were discussing how do you make a more realistic animal, form phonemes, form human speech.
We're trying to make a little different kind of compromise with our cast in this picture than we did in Snow White. We can't just make them straight animals. We want to caricature animals, not as humans. Not as though some human was dressed up in a deer suit. A straight anatomical study of animals won't work. But if we go too far on the human side, well, that won't work. What we have to try to do is make the audience feel, for the duration of the picture, that these are real animals. There's enough caricature so that we can get expression here. Give those characters so much life and personality that you forget that a little fawn, it doesn't look like that. His nose is longer or this or that. To capture and retain the real animal personality and not to get toward the stuffed animal side. We've got to build these characters up in the scenes to give them definite attitudes and mannerisms so that we aren't just vaguely trying to get a hold of them. His ability to convince you of his being a real animal is 75% dependent on the way he acts.
I think as you move along with these things, you can humanize them almost to the point that we humanized Figaro in Pinocchio. It's a good thing to look at Figaro there.
He thought we could go almost as far as that on, we'll say, the skunk. Yeah. Now, he didn't say on Bambi, but he feels the development of the human in there in the right spot is just the thing this picture needs. I know he can't wipe his mouth the way a kitten does, but there might be things in Bambi that he can do. Yeah, we got to find something in the little guy, it seems to me, to humanize him some way.
I was going through a book on child psychology, and these are all every face is based on the expression of human babies interpreted into the head of a young deer.
We came as close as we figured we possibly could to the real deer and still be able to articulate for dialogue and have a full range of expressions.
What bothers some of us is thinking that the story we're writing is Bambi the book.
Right.
I think we should get away from the book. I think we should look at it as a symphony based on the story of Bambi or suggested by the story of Bambi. If we try to follow the book, we're just going to be handicapped all the way through and the story will be too straight.
I think they ought to say less than the book does. Now, the book just rambles on, but when we put it in action, we should hold it down and get the meat of it.
In our films, we prove it in action instead of talking about it.
Do we really need to have any dialogue for the dogs?
The dog says, "You can't escape from him even though you've escaped from us." We wanted Bambi to hear it. That was the only purpose there.
Well, you might not need that. It sounds wordy, you know what I mean? You want to keep it from sounding like the book. Maybe the dogs wouldn't talk back to them at all.
One thing in favor of simplicity is that our action will read better.
Yeah, realistic background, that will overwhelm.
He came back with hundreds of pictures, and we were very much enthused with that type of thing, but it didn't work. We were doing too much detail.
And then after Walt looked at millions of leaves and trees, he was getting a little discouraged about how we're going to do this thing.
To me, it's not a question of putting enough tone and enough shading to make it belong, but making both background and character the same kind of world. It might be an extreme simplification, or more of what is peculiar to that thing.
When you get certain characters, like the little skunk, like Figaro when he begins to be a little more than a cat, the audience likes it, and we ought to work more of our characters that way. You feel he's a skunk, and at the same time, he's got a certain human personality to him. We always overstress the story, and it turns out that what you're really selling your public is the personality. I've seen that happen even in regular pictures where the story gets in the way. You get so interested in personalities. Let's try to keep them in.
They worked out the essence of Disney animation on Bambi that's continued to this day, which is animals who are caricatures of human beings and at the same time move and behave like animals.
Just because there are a bunch of pencil drawings going through these routines and giving these performances, to me that was real.
What he tried to do in his pictures was to get definite personalities in the cartoon characters. And he said, without a definite personality, a character can't be believed.
And the real learning for me was the movie Babe. So with Babe, I felt tremendous emotional connection to that character, but it was a real pig, and they just made the mouth move enough to talk.